Morning, everyone, or I guess afternoon for some of you. For me, I'm in California. It's still morning, but but I wanted to thank you for everyone for attending the SBN Businesswomen's Virtual Education Series. SBN series and events committees have been working hard to provide additional resources for our members to enhance their professional paths and careers. So be sure to check out all of our series on SBN's website. Nicole, our liaison, she will go ahead and add the link in the chat, and it'll also be in the follow-up email afterwards as well. Today we have Wade Kawasaki. Wade is a current partner in legendary companies, which include iconic restoration companies such as Coker Tire, Wheels Vintique, MOR, Paragon Corvette, along with events such as the Great Race and the Chattanooga Cruisin'. With sales, manufacturing, and distribution operations in 5 states and in Germany, Wade spent a number of years as a partner in the business preparing and transitioning the Coker Group family companies for sale, leading his team through the process of successful sales to private equity. His leadership as president, CEO, and partner post-acquisition gives him great perspective on all areas of acquisitions from both sides. Wade is I'm also a lot there. Sorry. Wade is a true car guy, passionate about our hobby and industry, and has been recognized by his peers with such awards such as SEMA Young Executive of the Year, SEMA Chairman Service Award, SEMA Person of the Year, and was inducted into the SEMA Hall of Fame. He served multiple terms on the SEMA Board of Directors, Executive Team, Board Secretary Treasurer, and accumulating being elected as the position of Chairman of the Board. In today's session, we have asked Wade to talk about navigating through acquisitions in this industry based on real life experience. He is going to dive into several topics that you as C-suite executives need to understand to better position of both parties through the transition. Employee morals can be hit extremely hard, and avoiding that can dramatically affect the success of your transition. Wade will talk to us for about 20 minutes before we move out into breakout sessions. In the breakouts, this is your time to connect with each other and work on an action plan to accomplish your goal, as well as building your network. This series has been designed to facilitate to your peer-to-peer networking in smaller groups. Take advantage of the time together today in these groups. Talk, chat, provide your insight, and ask your questions. We encourage you to take the initiative to share LinkedIn profile details so that you can connect afterwards with members of your group as well. This will help build connections that you can hopefully connect face-to-face to later on this year at the SEMA show. During the question, okay, so when Wade is giving, I know, sorry, I'm like reading all this stuff. So while Wade is giving the 20-minute presentation, we're gonna ask that everybody mute their computers and to turn off your screens at that time. If there are questions that come up during his talk, we will have a question and answer afterwards. And you guys can privately send me a message through the Zoom chat if you want, and I will go ahead and ask him those questions. And then later on, we will have breakout sessions, like we said, and those parts won't be recorded in the breakout usually, so we'll turn on our computers and those will be more personal. But other than that, let's welcome Wade Kawasaki.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And Sarah, congratulations for being not only Person of the Year, but also the Chair-elect of the SBN. I'm sure it's a very exciting position, and like everything that you do, you kind of grab that with both hands. So that's a very cool thing. And Sarah, you have the honor of actually scaring Chris Kirstein and I to death on at the Easter safari on some of those trails. So we thank you for that as well. So, hey, welcome to beautiful, sunny Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm here in my home office. Whoa, sorry about that. I'm here in my home office, and we are enjoying some beautiful weather out here. As Sarah said, what we were going to do is we're going to speak for a little bit, and I'm going to hopefully make it less than 20 minutes, but a little bit about the acquisition process. I want to talk about it at a 30,000 foot level, at a kind of a strategic level. But as I'm talking, if you have a question, private message that over to Sarah, and she'll ask that, so all of this stays anonymous, and I'll be able to answer those questions without everyone that's going to be listening to those recordings hear that. So looking forward to the time today. And I know from feedback that we got prior to the seminar that not only are you interested in the acquisition side of or the buy side of the acquisition, but also possibly on the sell side, that you may be looking to sell your family-owned company or larger corporation. And so I'll be kind of trying to gear this to both sides of that buy sell. So hold on a second, let me get to this. Great. So basically, when Corky Coker and I, my partner, decided we wanted to sell Coker Tire, which was Coker Group at the time, was made up of a few different companies. We looked at 3 different types of buyers, and these, if you're in the acquisition mode and are acquiring a company, these are the competitors that you're going to have out there as you try to purchase some of these companies. And the first one's a strategic buyer. And so that's what we were as Coker Group when we, for instance, purchased Wheel Antiques. We're a strategic buyer. They were a supplier to us. We needed additional output from them, and we felt we can help them with some of the things. And I'm going to talk about that Wheel Antiques acquisition a little bit later in more detail. But that's a kind of a perfect example of a strategic acquisition. And there's many strategic acquirers out there. Of course, everyone knows that Holly is out there looking at strategic acquisition, and so are many other companies, and they're doing a really good job. But these folks understand our industry, they're in our industry, and a lot of time have a supplier relationship with the companies. And so that is one way to be able to either sell your company, or for you as a strategic buyer to go out and purchase companies. The next group is a smaller group. It's family offices, and these smaller family offices and up to very large family offices, they go out there, and normally what they're doing is they look at acquisitions that really line up with the vision and of their family office, and a place where they have a lot of expertise. And so when we sold Coker Tire, we had a mixture of both strategic family offices, and of course the final one is private equity. And you've heard a lot about private equity in our industry for the past few years. It's the private equity kind of has gone into our industry and they come out of it, and now definitely back into it right now. Private equity comes in many different shapes and many different sizes, depending on the top line and EBITDA of your company. Will attract different private equity groups. We got a huge amount of interest from private equity groups, and so those were the majority of the folks that we were giving management presentations to when we sold Coker Tire. However, I'll tell you, we still did have the strategics and the family offices as well. What I want to do is I'm going to get to these 3 questions that were posed on the kind of the little teaser that went out. But then, like I said, if at any time you can think of a question, or you have something that you'd like to add to the conversation, please message Sarah, and she'll, like I said, anonymously do that if you feel uncomfortable. Otherwise, you can wait for the Q&A time as we turn all of our cameras on and ask those questions then. I think that will be the most interactive part of our discussion today, and I'd love to get dive deeper into things that are really specifically affecting you and things that you're looking for more advice on. So the first one of those questions was, what challenges to expect during an acquisition? Many small companies' employees have been there since the beginning and are very protective. This can be difficult and personal transaction that should be acknowledged. And that's absolutely true. We're in a passion industry. We're not selling a commodity item. So a lot of the people within these companies are very passionate about the company. They're very passionate about the hobby. So it means more to them than just a job. And so both on the buy side and the sell side, that's something that really has to be very transparent a process, and it has to be communicated very, very well. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I answer question number 2, but I can give you a couple of business examples that I had personal involvement with. And one of them was the Wheel Venetics acquisition. That was an acquisition where we had another wheel manufacturing company, Specialty Wheel, in Portland, Oregon. We owned a manufacturing facility in Chicago, Illinois, and then Roadster Wire Wheel in La Mirada, California. Wheel Venetics acquisition was going to bring all 4 of those companies together in one location in Southern California. So from the very beginning, we were going to make offers to some of their leaders, but most of the rank and file employees knew that we would be moving that from Fresno, California down to Southern California. It would be their absolute option to come down. And we were very pleased that some of them did come down, as well as the majority from La Mirada, of course, came down to Southern California, Los Angeles area, to be able to be in that, be able to join us in that purpose-built wheel facility. So I think the key to that, when you're actually closing that facility and moving it down, and we kept that facility open for about a year prior to moving it down, because we had to build out in City of Industry, was communication and transparency. I mean, and you're going to hear that from me over and over again, kind of when to communicate things, how to communicate things, but make sure that you're communicating things, because this is the time where, less is not more. I mean, you definitely need to over communicate things, allow people the time to interact with you so they can get a better feel and better understanding. What they don't know really does hurt them, and they really feel like they're being left out, and they don't understand what their future is like. And that's not good for them. It's not good for the company. It's not good for the move ahead company. There's also acquisitions like the one we finished about 12 months ago, which was Paragon Restoration. Now, that was a company where the CEO was going to stay on for a period of time, where all the staff was going to stay on board. And that's much different, right? Because a lot of things weren't going to change. We're trying to be additive to that process. We looked at Paragon as a great strategic acquisition for us. It's one of those rare opportunities, right, where we can make 1 + 1 = 3. And those are really, for a strategic buyer, those are the things that we're really looking for. The 1 + 1 = 3 in the Wheel Venetics case was being able to consolidate manufacturing operations of 4 different companies in one location. The 1 + 1 = 3 with Paragon is they had a great location there in Detroit with just an unbelievable amount of knowledge, technical knowledge and sales knowledge, research and development knowledge, as well as a great supply chain in that Detroit area. And so we wanted to make sure that we leveraged that and took advantage of that. And CEO Steve Childs is still in charge there. He'll be in charge for 12 more months post-sale. So we're really excited about that. So it's a much different challenge, but still it's very, very similar. I was up there for their open house. I was up there a number of times during due diligence, speaking to their staff and making sure they understand that they can always call me, that they can always chat with us. We are in a very relationship-based industry, and we want to make sure that we keep those lines of communication open. Second question was how to avoid or overcome challenges during change. I'll share how I navigated a family business with long-term employees and helped them adapt to a very different corporate culture. And again, transparency and communication is absolutely the key. And this is going to go both on the sell side and on the buy side. I'll reflect some of the things that we did getting acquired by a private equity company, but it also applies if you're acquiring companies as well. So the first thing that we did is we took and developed a communication plan prior to us getting started. So we wanted to kind of start with the end in mind and go back and say, hey, how can we best communicate this with not only our leadership team, and with our acquisition team, but also with our employees covering 5 different states and 2 different countries. And so what we decided on was to have town hall meetings. And these town hall meetings were in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where the majority of our employees are, but we also fed it live stream to Munich, Germany. Well, Munich, Germany wasn't live stream. They actually got it on delay, but in Los Angeles and Hershey, Pennsylvania as well. We brought in the people from Alabama, so that wasn't an issue. And we did 4 town hall meetings at very strategic times. The first town hall was pre-management presentation meeting. So before we started doing any management presentations, we had already marketed the company, but before we actually had people in our building doing management presentations, we had a town hall meeting. That town hall meeting was there to tell them that this is what we're doing, this is what's going to happen over the next few weeks, and these are the people that are coming to see us, and what the future looks like, what we're looking for in that future strategic partner to come alongside Coker Tire. After that management, and then we allowed them to ask questions, and they had, of course, a ton of questions, but and which was important, but more importantly, they're able to communicate with their direct leaders to be able to walk through this, so they felt comfortable. The next town hall we did was at the LOI signing. So when we signed that letter of intent and decided on which dance partner we're choosing to move forward with, and due diligence is about to start, it allowed us to say, hey, here's the company that we selected, here's why we selected this company, here's what their future plans are. But most importantly, we're able to preview with them what due diligence was going to look like. Because for those of you that have done due diligence or been through due diligence, it is an amazingly painful process. And to be able to shed light on that process, to be able to let people understand what the overarching value to that process and why they're doing that process is really important. So we did that at that LOI signing time. And then immediately post-sale, we did another town hall meeting. And again, these town hall meetings are an open forum. I speak, I have our CFO speak, at times the VP of sales, VP of marketing spoke. So those are things that we want to make sure that they're hearing it from not just me, but from our entire acquisition team. And then after the sale, we did a 1 year later, kind of a wrap up. Here's what we thought would happen, here's what did happen, and here's what's really guiding our future. And we found that to be very, very helpful in moving the needle forward on keeping up company morale, and at the same time being able to adapt and help them adapt to the change that was happening by us reporting to private equity. Now, fortunately, I was stayed on as CEO and president for the next 3 years. I had a contractual agreement to do that. And so it made the change slower, which allowed them to adapt more easily. But definitely the communication and transparency portion of that was really key. The third question is how to obtain control of acquired company at an executive level, from leading the executive acquisition team, new stakeholders, existing management, and existing staff. So in our particular case, our acquisition team, because that's the first thing we talked about here, was our CFO, our VP of operations, and sometimes side by side with our HR director, the VP of sales, our VP of marketing, and VP of development. Now, that team didn't go to every single management presentation. There were certain members of those teams that would go. Also, the entire team didn't go over for when we started due diligence. There was certain members of that team, and they would always have a counterpart within the companies that we're acquiring. And also when we got acquired, they'd have a certain counterpart and be able to communicate directly with them as well. The external team, which had talked about stakeholders, is in our case, once we were private equity owned, we had a finance team, an ops team, and a legal team available to us at the private equity. Now, fortunately, the private equity firm that we work for, phenomenal guys, very talented individuals. And it was really nice to be able to say, hey, these are things that you do better than us that aren't really tied into our industry. And those are the things that we would really love you to come alongside of us with. And that was the finance team, the ops team, and their legal team. So we utilized them as well. One of the things that we started doing at this point when we started looking at companies, and this also applies to sale places, besides the town hall meetings, I made sure that I scheduled one-on-ones. We had huddles, individual huddles for different areas. And I also scheduled one-on-one time with all of my leaders and sat down with them and said, hey, what are your concerns? How can we do this better? And really start to listen to what is going on within the company. And that kind of modeled and encouraged them to do the same thing with their teams. And again, so that communication flow was very important. So